I mean,
I have Twitter, but I
good
never
morning,
use it.
y'all. It's Tuesday. We're getting ready to get started here on the Rutledge Perspective radio show in the historic KCOH TV radio station, The Boost, in Houston, Texas. Coming in hot this morning, y'all. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy morning, but it's all good. We got some good stuff going on. I got some things to share with you guys. Got a story for y'all. It's a lot, but it's going to be good.
I'm Laurel Rutledge, and I
That's
would
what I'm
love to
telling
have
myself.
you join me on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on KCOH TV, The Boost. You can find it at www.kcohradio.com. The Rutledge Perspective coming your way.
I love my little commercial. We got some new ones coming for y'all soon.
We had to do that.
Okay, I'll get it to you. So we're going to be talking about Grace today. Elon Musk. I got a story for y'all. Yeah, it's going to be a good Tuesday. I am claiming it. I am claiming that it's going to be a good Tuesday because it started off kind of interesting. But we're going to claim it's going to be a good day. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show live here on KCOH TV Radio, The Boost in the historic KCOH TV radio station at the corner of Alameda and Wichita in Houston, Texas. So excited to be here. Good morning, Dr. Tyra. So excited to be here with all y'all this morning, because it's not all of you all, right? I'm texting, it's all y'all this morning. Going to be talking a little bit about Grace and Elon Musk. What a combination. So it's going to be a little bit of a mashup today because of some things that have been going on. So, and anger and irritation, all that good stuff. But first, as y'all know, we always talk about voting. So, for one, early voting is going on in Texas right now. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So North Carolina and Washington, you guys have votes going on today, some special elections and some general elections. That's North Carolina and Washington. Get registered. I just talked about this on a fireside show last night. Get registered to vote, y'all. If you're 18, that's your birthday present to yourself. Go get registered to vote. Go take somebody with you to get registered to vote. If your parents, if your cousins, if your uncles, if you whoever are not registered, take them with you and go get registered. Make it a party. Go get registered to vote. Go figure out who's running. You have got to get involved in these local elections. You have to get involved in these local elections, especially school board elections. So there is a big thing going on right now, y'all. There is this person who has this Twitter account, of course, it's Twitter, that has this incredible following, and she is one of those who's spreading all kinds of madness and conspiracy theories and just craziness. And so it was her, she was highlighted because there's a particular reporter, I think she's either with the Washington Post or the New York Times, who follows influencers. And so this person is deemed as an influencer. She's got millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, and she is exercising influence, and the challenge is she's exercising influence in the political arena. And one of the things she has said she is going to do is she is really going after building funds and getting people to run for school boards, placing people on school boards who don't know nothing about curriculum, but have these crazy agendas. And we already have kids growing up not knowing nothing, who can't think, who can't critically think, right? We are doing ourselves a disservice. Our education system is one of the last in the world, our K through 12. Our higher education is still one of the top, but our K through 12 is continuing to lose ground. So I need you to pay attention. I need you to get registered. I need you to pay attention to who is running for school board elections, who's running for your local councilman, who's running for these things. What are they saying? What is their experience? What is their education? What is their knowledge? What do they know? Right? It's one thing to have a good heart and really want to help. It's another thing to have a crazy agenda, and then have that impact kids for generations. Stop it. Stop it. So please go get registered. Go get educated. Oh, good. Jenny says she's going to a school board tonight. Good. Because I'm not surprised. I heard about Ohio's Don't Say Gay bill. stop. That's what we worried about, okay? I actually, to that point, total sidebar, that's going to be one of these days, y'all. Total sidebar, I just saw somebody post, a person who happens to be gay, who just proposed to their partner, and they never posted about the relationship. They kind of got to the place where they're like, why do we need to talk about it? Not so much that they were denying it at all. It felt like not a thing anymore. And then when they did post this, selfie of the engagement, there was all of this, some good and some nasty. And one of the things they said that I was like, this is so profound. This is so profound. They said, look, you guys keep talking about indoctrination, and if you read this stuff, if you read these books, you're going to quote unquote turn your kids gay. He said, well, I'm gay, and reading all this heterosexual stuff didn't turn me straight. So how is it going to be the other way around? I was like, you know what? That's a dang good point, right? Stop, y'all. If there's something you want to make sure that your kids know or don't know, or if there's something you want to make sure that they are aware of, or you want to protect them from, fine. Number one, on the far end of the scale, that's what they make homeschooling for. Go homeschool. That way you don't have to have them learn anything that you don't want them to learn. Go do that. Otherwise, how about you talk to your children? How about that? How about aunts, uncles, cousins, best friends? How about you talk to your kids? If there's something that they bring home that you're like, whoop, that's not what we believe, or, oh, I'm really concerned about that, have a conversation with them. Your kids are not stupid. Your kids are not stupid. Have a conversation with them. Understand what they're hearing, right? Are they really hearing what you think they're hearing, or are you making it up? So go get registered. Go vote. Go take someone else to vote. Go get educated about the issues, because it's important. Our democracy, this is one of the conversations we were having last night on Fireside. And if you guys aren't on Fireside, I encourage you to get on Fireside and watch my show, of course. But there are some really great shows out there. And Stephanie and Sarah hosted a show last night on this thing with Elon Musk, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And, one of the things she talked about, she spent a lot of time in politics, Sarah did, in the Republican Party. She is not a Democrat. She's not necessarily a Republican either now. It's just she's in that really gray area, and she's very forthright about that. But we were talking about this whole issue around education and around voting and around just doing the right thing. And one of the things she talked about is, we've got to recognize that our democracy right now is hanging by a thread. And that's not, and she said it, I've said it before, that is not being, crazy. That is not being alarmist. No, that it is literally hanging by a thread. It takes a little bit to tip it over to this really autocratic thing. And here's the thing. Everybody in the world is watching. The world is watching and waiting for this democracy to fall. It is hanging by a thread. Those that are in power who are so afraid to lose it because they are trying to impose their agendas on everyone else are doing whatever they can to hold on to it. And that is a way to end a democracy. Democracy is about people having a voice. Democracy is about everyone being able to participate. So I need the 95% that are inside the fringes, because the fringes are never going to agree. They are the loudest right now. Those crazy whack nuts on both ends are the loudest right now. I need all of y'all, all of us who are in the middle, even when we don't agree philosophically on some things, to speak up, to stop being so tired, to stop saying, I'm just not going to think about it, I'm not going to do it. We need you to speak up, right? We need normal people with the ability to have conversation, the ability to disagree without being disagreeable, to be able to move things forward. That's what we need to step up. We need y'all to get registered. We need you to vote. We need you to not be tired, right? Again, I've talked about it. I'm not a marcher. I've got friends of mine who are, they are at every rally. They are marchers. That's how they get involved. That's not my thing. But I'm going to use this platform. To those whom much is given, much is expected. I'm going to use this platform to talk about all of that all the time, right? I'm going to give where I can. I'm going to get involved in the voting process, right? So please get involved. Educate yourself on what the issues are, what's going on, what the impact is. There's a big bond issue going on in my hometown right now about the schools. And I don't live there anymore, so I'm cautious about what I say. But I got to say, I'm really irritated. I'm irritated because it really should be following what the agreement was years ago when they shut down a high school. Because I'm telling you, if you can spend all the money that you spent to upgrade Blackshear, because all of a sudden it was a Magnus, all your precious little children were going to be bused to the south side. If you could fix that up, then you can fix up Ector, that already has a field house and a swimming pool, instead of building another school on the northeast side. And we know what that means. We know what that means. Ain't nobody stupid. We know what that means. So that's just my opinion. And I don't get to vote in that election, but I'm certainly going to vote in the ones here. And early, which brings me to Harris County. So early voting is going on right now in Texas. Local and constitutional propositions are going on right now. Early voting is now through May the 3rd, with the election day on May the 7th. May 7th is also the last day to get your mail-in ballot. Okay, May the 7th. So please get voting. Go early vote, right? Because you can vote at any polling place during early voting. Remember, there's some shady shenanigans going on. Make sure you are checking your polling place. Make sure you are confirming, if you are a registered voter, make sure you are confirming that they still have you on the polls, because all that kind of crazy purging is going on too. Don't let somebody else's agenda take away your voice. Now, I'm not telling you how to vote, because that's not my right. We can talk about what my opinion is when it gets closer to the election time. But it is not my place to tell you how to vote. But it is my obligation to ask you to vote and to demand that you do something and not just sit by the sidelines. Okay. All right. So enough of that. This week, podcast drops tomorrow as soon as I record it. Because I haven't recorded it yet, because I had to figure out what I was going to actually say this week. It's been one of those weeks, y'all. And Fireside. So Fireside, for me, back up and running. Apparently a couple of accounts got caught up in some really weird, like out of the blue tech stuff. Their tech support, y'all, is phenomenal. And so we're back up and running. So Ash, if you're listening, we'll get that replay out this week so people can see it. But join me on Fireside on Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to be doing some traveling here coming up this month, so the time may move a little bit, but I'm going to really try not to move the time until I maybe move it permanently to Wednesdays. But 7 p.m. this week. This week we're going to be talking about this same thing around alignment, vision, action. So the show is called Alignment, Vision, Action, brought to you by the Rutledge Perspective on Fireside, 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Join me, join the conversation, get on the stage, talk to me, right? Get on video if you want to, and let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about getting aligned. Let's talk about getting clear. Let's talk about moving into action, because really voting is all about action, y'all. It's about getting really clear on understanding our history, understanding where we're going, understanding that democracy ain't for sissies, right? You got to be invested to be able to be in a democracy. And if you are enjoying the fruits of the fact that we have one, then it is your obligation to continue to support it so that it continues to thrive. And I meant obligation. I didn't mean choice. I meant obligation. If you are benefiting from it, it is your obligation to maintain it. All right. Today, I want to talk a little bit about Grace, Elon Musk, right? A little bit of anger. And I'm going to tell y'all a story first. So, one of the things for me is it is really important to be completely transparent, right? I'm really transparent with you guys, very upfront about the really great stuff, about the really hard stuff, because it's real. And for those of you who work with me, who listen to me, who follow me, who show up, thank you, number one. But two, I want you to always know who you're dealing with, right? What you see is what you get. And so last week was actually a pretty good week. Got a lot of good stuff done, but have some stuff that I'm really working at moving. And so this weekend got a chance. I did post. I'll have to post on my business page. Did some more gardening because, this dang Jerry P. Beasley got me spending money like I'm a Rockefeller. Okay. And so got some more planting done. Everything looks great. It gives me peace. And so this weekend I was out, gardening, planting some things, spent way too much money. Because what I intended to do was just go buy some fertilizer for my blueberries. Yeah, right. That's not, I know better, y'all. I know better. But anyway, got out there and did that and really enjoyed it. Same thing on Sunday. Got a good walk in both days. Got my meditation in, all of that kind of stuff. And then Monday hit. And I don't know what happened. I think it was the weather. I don't know what happened. But all of a sudden, we've talked about that polyvagal theory, right? When you're in ventral, you're really in the zone. You're in your genius zone. But then there's sympathetic, right? When you're in that fight or flight. And then there's dorsal when you're in that freeze mode. And I was sitting full in dorsal for some reason, right? It was that, what is going on? I can't get stuff done. I mean, it was an ugly, heavy, crazy, like I don't even know where this came from day. So much pressure, so much, what have I done? What am I doing? Why am I, y'all, look, it's a good thing I got a therapist. It was insane. And so I ended up spending a lot of time. I went outside after I had my therapy session. I went outside, got some sun, right? Looked at my plants because they make me happy. Saw a few bees, which actually scared me, but I was really glad to see them because my cucumbers, I've got all these flowers, but no cucumbers yet. So I need some bees to do the work. So, that made me happy. And then I got in, I actually ate well yesterday, ate healthy yesterday. And then I sat on my couch because I really wanted to regroup and I needed to rethink about who I was and where I was, right? I was doing my own process on me, who I was and where I was, getting aligned with that again. And then getting really clear on what is this vision? What is this vision, right? And not going back to, I can't believe I spent so much money and I can't believe I've done so much stuff and people that I asked to do some things who didn't deliver and, all of these kind of things, who I trusted that I shouldn't have trusted. Y'all know the rabbit hole, right? I know I'm not alone in this. Y'all know the rabbit hole that you get in when all of a sudden, instead of focusing on how far you've come, the spirit gets into all the stuff you haven't done or how far you have yet to go. And you start especially when you're like me, type A insecure overachiever, right? You start reliving stuff from decades ago. If I had why didn't I should, all that stuff. And so I actually ended up sitting down and watching this show called Long Lost Family. I don't know why I watched that stuff, right? You end up bawling. People who were adopted, who were trying to find, birth parents, and I ended up just bawling. And I think it was, one, they're great stories, but also just that need to release, just needed a release. Because again, I don't know where the stress came from. So I did that. And then I got myself together and I was like, okay, Laurel, there's some things you have got to accomplish today, right? Because sometimes you need to take that pause and just go to bed. But I also knew in this moment that if I succumbed to that, I might be there all week. I mean, that's how dark it was yesterday. I might be there all week and I didn't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. I didn't have time for that. And that's not where I wanted to be, right? It's like the mind is strong, but the flesh is weak. That's not where I wanted to be, but my spirit was just heavy. And so then I started doing some things and I saw this deal pop up about Elon Musk. I'm like, wait, no. Elon Musk made a bid, but Twitter exercised the poison pill, so he didn't, no, they blocked that. Clearly, I haven't been paying attention to the news. And so one of the people that is on Fireside, who is one of the big supporters, one of the founders, right, one of the first people there, really supporting new creators and everything on Fireside, Stephanie, had a show. She and Sarah McCord did a show last night, and the show was, Elon Musk and what that's going to do to Twitter. And for those of you who haven't been following, and I'm not a big Twitter person. I've got a Twitter account. I post my podcast on Twitter, but I'm not active on Twitter at all. It's just not a place where I go. It's too much madness. It's a quagmire for me. It's just not my space. And so their whole the conversation started with, okay, here's what's going on. Now let's talk about what that means in terms of social media. Let's talk about what it means that Elon Musk is going to buy it, because his big thing is reopening the idea of free speech. Now, when I first heard that, my stomach just turned, right? Because Elon Musk is not like most of us, right? He has even admitted that he's on the spectrum, which is not what I mean by he's not like most of us. He has a level of genius and ability to innovate that the majority of us do not have. He sees problems and designs solutions. I mean, there is some genius in it. He's an odd duck, but there is some genius in there, right? And he is willing to fail fast, which is a key part of innovation. If you want to innovate, you have to be willing to fail fast. You have to be willing to try stuff, see what happens, throw the spaghetti up against the wall, see what sticks, and then keep moving. But as Stephanie was saying last night, it's the 80-20 rule, right? He'll do that and he'll say, well, it's 80% good, let's just go. But then never really gets to the 20%, which is where some things start to fall down, which is why you started seeing some real problems with Tesla, right? You never go back and address the things that are really significant. Whereas if you think of public companies, right, they spend so much time trying to avoid litigation that they stifle innovation. So his statement that he is going to take it private and then reinstate this whole idea of, good morning, Jan, of reinstating freedom of speech is concerning from this standpoint. There are still limits to freedom of speech, right? You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. There is still such a thing as truth. There are still facts. There is still disinformation that is harmful to people. That is true. And so when you hear kind of these blanket statements of, I'm just going to allow people to come back, and one of the first people is Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, oh, this is great, I can get my Twitter account back, who we know was spreading lots of disinformation, right? And harmful information. That is concerning. But here's the power of Fireside and having really open conversations and being willing to think about and listen to different perspectives. Is one of the things that several people said, Stephanie and Sarah both said, is one, we got to be careful. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, right? We have no idea what's going to happen. And there are many, many people. Twitter still has millions of followers. Millions of people are on Twitter all the time. But there are a lot of people who've just decided not to be active on Twitter because it has, in many cases, become just a quagmire of crap. I mean, people just getting out there, lots of bots, lots of porn stuff, it's gotten to be just a quagmire, right? And so if you get in the right bubble, you can still be really effective and have a lot of good stuff on Twitter and engage in really great conversations. And I do get like the postings of funny things parents said this week or funny things women said this week, those kind of things that are interesting and engaging. But we don't know what's going to happen. We have no way to know what's really going to happen. We don't know. Because there are some things that he could do that could completely turn it around, but there are some things he could also do that completely just crater it and take it off, right? And we don't know what's going to happen. And if we think about this in the context of leadership and what it means and who he may or may not surround himself with and how we're going to move forward and what does it mean in terms of free speech and having these places where people can have conversations, because part of the problem with our increasing intellectual laziness is the lack of places you can go to really have deep, sometimes controversial and heated conversations in safe spaces where there can be differing of opinions and people are listening, as opposed to just this angry madness of the extremes, right? This inability to hear differing opinions, understand them, because just because you listen to someone, just because you are polite and engaging does not mean you agree. You can still have a dissenting opinion, but you don't have to be nasty about it. You can disagree without being disagreeable. And so finding those places where we can have that discord, because if you listen to part of what Elon Musk says, it's about having open conversations, and we need to have those. The other side of that coin is, I want you to be able to say whatever it is you're saying, because see, then you reveal to me who you are. When you think that nobody's listening, or you think there are no repercussions, then we see what you really think. And see, I need to know that. That's information that's critical to me for my safety, to know what I need to do in order to manage myself around you, right? So we don't know what's going to happen. And in all of that, it really is about this grace piece, right? This, when I think about how bad yesterday was and trying to move into today and how it's going to happen, and I woke up with thinking it's going to be a better day. It's going to be a much better day. Lots still to do, lots still going on, but I also made some decisions yesterday and said, you know what? Here's some deadlines. I put these deadlines, which means I can move these deadlines, and sent some information to people who were waiting on some things and said, look, here's what's happening. Here's why I'm moving this, but here's when you can expect it now, right? So plenty of time, not at the last minute, but just needed to let some people know. And then when I got up this morning and had all this stuff happening, because on top of this, I have a number of people in my inner circle who are going through some serious health things. And it just has me concerned, right? I don't know what's happening, but there's lots of health stuff happening really close in my circle. And that is concerning. And so this morning I got up, I'm like, you know what? I had this great conversation on Fireside last night. We got into the Elon Musk thing in Twitter and freedom of speech, but we also got into showing up and engagement and responsibility. And I mean, it was just a really great conversation. And as I got ready for the show today and I was printing out my little sheet to take my little notes to get ready, my printer stopped working. And I had things I wanted to do this morning. I needed to send my little picture. I needed, just normal stuff for Monday. And my printer stopped working. And so I was like, really? And I could feel the tears coming, right? Because it's been that day. And I'm like, Lord, I can't take one more thing. I can't take one more thing. So I get online, Google it. Thank you, Google. Google it. What do I need to do? How do I fix it? Went through all of the things. Didn't work. Get online, want to call support. Okay, well, it's out of warranty. Fine. Spend a little $20 for 30 days worth of help. Then they didn't recognize that. So I had to call again. Finally got on with somebody. Go through all of this madness for the guy to come back. Y'all, this is real. I can't make this up. Bought the printer in 2019, September 2019. So it is not even 3 years old yet. The kid comes back, and I say kid, I don't know. Comes back and says, well, we've done everything we could do. So I can feel my blood pressure right. We've done everything we could do. It sounds like your printer head has gone bad. We could absolutely replace that printer head for you, but there's no guarantee that would actually work. And since it's out of warranty, it's extremely expensive. So our recommendation to you is you buy a new printer. I had no words for a minute. Just like now, just replayed it again. I'm like, wait, what? And then he kept talking, right? And this is a kid, I think, who maybe the first job. I mean, there was just a lot. There was some communication challenges with this person who was my person. And he kept saying, and it's real expensive, but you can do. And finally I said, okay, so let me make sure I understand. I've got a printer that's not even 3 years old, where I've done everything you guys say, and you're telling me the only solution is to buy a new printer. So in other words, I should buy something other than HP, and it is an HP printer. I should buy something other than HP, or I should plan my budget accordingly such that I buy the incredibly expensive extended warranty because it is not going to work beyond 3 years, beyond 2 years in this matter. It's not going to work beyond 2 years. And I will either need to buy an extended warranty for exorbitant amounts of money or be ready to buy a new printer every 2 years if I decide to stay with Hewlett Packard. That's what you're telling me. Well, I'm just saying that, the printer head thing is really expensive. And I said, so what you're telling me is I need to budget to have to buy a new printer every 2 years if I decide to stay with your product because you guys are incapable of making a product that lasts beyond 2 years. You've made a decision to build product that does not last, to require people to buy extended warranties or to buy new equipment every 2 years. That's what you're telling me. The kid was so confused. So finally, I could feel my blood pressure getting up, right? This is the grace question after yesterday. I could feel my blood pressure just getting and I was like, I was about to light him up. And I thought, and finally I said, you know what? I said, John, I don't know why I'm still talking to you. I said, you are doing everything that you have been taught to do, that you have been trained to do. You have given me everything through the extent of your capability and your training. And it is not your fault. It is not your fault that this equipment is less than stellar. It is not your fault. It is not your fault that the service is horrendous. It's not your fault. And so instead of continuing to have this conversation with you, which is going to make me crazy and likely get me to a place where I am less than respectful with you when it's not your fault, I'm going to disconnect and make a decision to choose a different vendor, which is not going to do anything to impact Hewlett Packard at all, because I'm one little person. But it's going to make me feel better. And so I wish you a better day, and I hope you're able to solve somebody else's problem, even though you weren't able to solve mine. Thank you very much. And I hung up. Then I was like, oh, I didn't read my morning meditation this morning. Picked up my little book. What was it? Grace, be nice to people. See, that was a God wink that just said, Laurel, I know you're having a hard time. I need you to be nice. Because I'm telling you, I am generally a nice person. I'm generally a respectful person. I won't say and kind, just because, why not? But I can switch quickly to respond in kind. And I know that about myself. And so part of the conversation we had last night too was a story that Stephanie was telling about some people who came after her. She had a mask on in a store, and some people who just really came after her crazy. And instead of responding in kind, she was actually very quiet and very respectful, to the point where they finally just dropped their basket and ran because the police were coming, because they were essentially had assaulted her, right? Not physically, but had verbally assaulted her, and we're getting to the point of physical assault. And so she's like, yeah, we're not having that. I'm not that girl. So before you do something that you can't take back and suffer the consequences, I suggest you flee, which they did. And so when you're in these situations, right, and you're having to decide how you're going to show up. You're having to decide how you're going to have a conversation with someone who may have a dissenting opinion or may be incapable of having a conversation at the same level that you are, either because of just experience or ignorance, or because they've been trained to do nothing less, or they've been told they can't, right? They are not allowed to actually give solutions, right? We talked about that before, that leadership is about solutions. Before you lose your mind behind someone else's incapability, can you give some grace in that situation? And can you give some grace to yourself? I had to really practice some grace yesterday with myself, because I was ready to call it a day. I was ready to call it, which, by the way, because I know that can be taken in multiple ways. I don't mean call it a day and I was done with this life. That's not what I mean. I was not suicidal yesterday. I was not suicidal yesterday, and I take that very seriously, which is why this sidebar really quickly. There was an announcement that came out yesterday, or at least I saw it yesterday. They've been talking about it for a while, but the announcement I saw was yesterday. In July, the suicide prevention hotline, and I think they're actually calling it something different instead of suicide prevention, but the hotline number, the 800 number, now is getting a really quick number. It is now going to be 988. So instead of, if you are in crisis starting in July, instead of having to remember that 800 number, or whatever the moniker is, which I can't even remember, instead of having to remember the 800 number for suicide prevention, now 988. So similar to 911, but 988, and that will get you immediately to the hotline. I was so excited to hear that, because I understand what it means to be in crisis, and we have so many people through the pandemic and through everything that's been going on who have really reached that point for a number of reasons. And so 988 starting in July, I'm making myself a note too, to make sure that I keep bringing that up when they do finally put it out there. 988 will now be the new number to call for suicide prevention, right? If you are in crisis, make sure you have it, make sure you write it down, make sure you tell people. If you see something, say something. Okay, so back to the issue at hand. So being able to give yourself some grace in that moment, and being able to give grace to other people. And I believe that's what's missing. It's what's missing in leadership. It is what's missing in these conversations that we're having, because we unleashed, and I say we because for those of us who voted, we participated in this. And for those of us who are, and I say us just because I'm trying to be kind, those of us who supported the madness, that's why we are where we are globally, because we saw the impact of leaders who refuse to be accountable, leaders who refuse to speak truth to power, leaders who refuse to speak the truth, right? We saw the impact of that globally, and that's why our democracy is hanging on the thread. We saw the impact of really poor leadership, inauthentic, untrustworthy leadership that lacked integrity. We saw the impact of that and how vast that can be. On the other side of that coin is a great deal of power in having grace and giving grace when you're in a leadership position. Because through that, you have to pause. You have to think, you have to listen actively. You have to be willing to understand that you don't know everything and that your position may, in fact, be flawed. You have to be willing to listen to something that you may not like. You have to be willing to have people surround you who are not yes people. That's what grace means. That's what grace means. And so when we are moving into this new kind of era, I don't know what else to call it, right? Where information comes at us so quick and we have to be discerning about what's real and what's not, what's true and what's not, what's valuable and what's not. When we're having to make really tough decisions about policies and practices, right? Terms of service. Grace is really important. And that was one of the things that came up last night around, and they didn't use the word grace. I'm using the word grace, which is, because we don't know what's going to happen with Twitter under Elon Musk's leadership. And when he takes it private, we don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is being able to put in place terms of service that enable conversation, dissenting opinions in conversation, but also create spaces that are safe. And creating terms of service that do all of that is hard. It is not easy. It is not easy. And one of the things that Twitter did, unlike Meta, who actually thinks we don't remember their Facebook, was really address some things head on. Now, it took them a while at first, too, to disrupt some things. But when they did, they really stepped fully into it, unlike their other partners, right? But those terms of service are very, very difficult. How do you encourage engagement and dissension and free speech, which is part of a democracy, right? Dissension, differing opinions, that's a key piece of democracy. That's a key piece of the democratic process, right? Whether or not a two-party system makes sense, because there really are more than two parties. It's just been two parties that are the majority for generations. Not saying that's perfect by any means, but a key piece of the tenet is that we have an ability to discuss things and have things be talked about, and that there is representation of all sides, and that there is an ability to manage power and eliminate this move towards kind of autocratic leadership, which is what we're really seeing. What grace also does is enable us to allow for the alleviation of ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance as a slam, because we all have places of ignorance. We are all ignorant about something, because none of us knows everything. We all have gaps in our knowledge. We all have places where we are ignorant and issues about which we are ignorant. And our inability to admit that means that we are also not able to fix that. And through grace and giving ourselves grace and giving others grace, we also leave room to fill those gaps. To say, you know what? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know anything about that. Like, I was looking up W3 and W2, and I'm like, people are throwing around this language. I don't even know what that is, right? NFTs, crypto. I have no idea. I have no idea what all this stuff is. I don't know how it works. I don't know what it all is. And I hope I locked my car. I don't know what it all is. But I also have to give myself grace to try to alleviate that ignorance if I choose to do so. Because there's some things I'm like, you know what, I'm not an early adopter of a lot of things, and so I'll take my time, see what happens, right, and figure it out. Especially when there's so much turmoil around it, like crypto, right, and NFTs, because that's another place where people are trying to figure out how it works. How do you regulate it? How do you create spaces or keep spaces like a Twitter, like an Instagram, like a Facebook, like a whatever, where people are able to engage and meet people they didn't know and learn things they didn't know? How are you able to keep some of the freedom in those spaces and yet protect people from harm? How do you do that? When you look at things like crypto, there was also on Fireside, one of the regulators was being interviewed on Fireside. And she was saying, one of the challenges we have around this cryptocurrency and NFTs and all of these things is, how do you regulate them? How do you put regulatory bodies in place and have those bodies not all of a sudden also step into this kind of autocratic, heavy-handed guidance, right? It's a very difficult line to walk. How do you protect consumers while still allowing a level of freedom that's enabled these things to be so incredibly attractive, right? And so incredibly accessible. Crypto is accessible to people. And does the regulation then all of a sudden make it inaccessible? And it's also accessible with no protection. And so you've got a lot of people, again, if you look at crypto, there are a lot of people in marginalized communities who are really taking advantage, which means you've also got people in marginalized communities who are really being taken advantage of. People who can't afford to have really, really crazy losses are experiencing crazy losses because there's no regulation, right? There's no insurance on crypto, not yet anyway, right? And so how can we, as individuals, but also as leaders, understand that in all of this, how do we give a little bit of grace, have a little bit of patience to say, these are complex issues. These are not simple issues. These are complex issues. And in order to find simple solutions, that is difficult. It is so hard to be simple. It's easy to be complex. It's so hard to be simple. And there are people so much smarter than me that have designed and understood what crypto is, right? This money that's not real money, right? This trading, it's kind of like bartering, right? You got value from bartering because someone else put value on it. It's valuable because other people said it was valuable, not because you said it was valuable. The market said it was valuable. The market said it would pay $5 an avocado because people still want them. And there's a supply chain issue. But if all of a sudden people are like, we're not paying $5 for avocados, and avocados start rotting, people stop buying them, that puts market pressure, all of a sudden those $5 avocados become $2 avocados or $1 avocados, right? It's a market thing. And what people don't realize, I think, is that there's a lot about the market that's emotional. It's not logical. It's emotional. That's why they say if you're playing the stock market, you need to be long-term playing. That is not a quick fix. That's not a get rich quick scheme, because there's a lot of emotion that goes into markets. And because we have moved away from stakeholder concerns, which includes employees and customers as well as shareholders, to shareholder concerns, we are moving more towards an understanding or a desire to ensure market caps are right, as opposed to that businesses are healthy, right? That we are reinvesting. Capitalism is no longer as much about reinvesting as it is about share price. We've just turned it upside down. And here's the thing. If I think about grace, this is not unusual. This is evolution. Evolution is not pretty. Evolution can be painful. Evolution can be ugly. Evolution can be all in your face about all the stuff you thought was right. Right? There are many, many things that are reinvented in history, right? Reinvented in hindsight when we know more. That's why we say innovation. You have to move quick, be quick to fail, right? Be willing to fail fast because you can learn faster. Fail fast, see what worked, keep moving with that, see what the next failure is, fix that, see what the next failure is, fix that, right? You got to keep fixing and keep moving. But there's got to be grace in that to enable those moments when you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just done. I'm cooked. Stick a fork in me. Done and done. And those times when there's just going to be failure that in some cases may be catastrophic. How do we offer grace to ourselves and to others? Because in that failure, there is learning, there is growth, there is the potential for something greater in that failure. Seeing what's going to happen to Twitter, it may fall completely off of the rails. And that will be an exceptional learning opportunity for all of us. Because it's already a little sideways, if we're honest. All of social media is. I said last night, I am under social media under duress. It is not something I love to do, as I get yet another thing from Facebook about how they've got this marketing expert that's assigned to me that's going to help me do better. Really? What you're going to do is tell me I need to spend more money if I want it to work. I'm not doing that. Right? So why am I continuing to have these conversations? That I can no longer give grace to, right? I'm giving grace to myself to say, Laurel, you have a choice. You don't have to have that conversation again. Getting aligned, getting clear, right? Moving in action that moves you along to the thing that you say you want. And giving yourself the opportunity to continually revisit that. To continually revisit that. And we're going to do some shout outs here in a minute. It's really important that we think through and move through the anger and irritation and frustration if we're going to make a change. If we're going to make a change. If what we're doing now doesn't feel good, if you're sitting fully in dorsal, right? That's your freeze mode. That's your, I just want to go to bed. I don't want to do anything else. I just can't. That's dorsal. If you're sitting in dorsal, you can sit in dorsal, or you can recognize, give yourself some compassion and grace, be kind to yourself to say, you know what? I'm in dorsal right now. I'm going to give myself a minute, and then I'm going to take baby steps to try to at least move myself up to the fight or flight, right? So I'm at least out of bed. I'm fighting for something. Right? You got to give yourself a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding. And when you can afford that to yourself, it gives you a chance to afford it to others. Because we never know what fight someone else is having. We don't know what race they're running. We don't know what battle they're fighting. And there really is still such a thing as truth. There's still such a thing as facts. There's still such a thing as respect and decorum and civility. Those things do still exist regardless of what you see right now, because all you're seeing is the fringes right now. The majority of people still do believe in a level of civility and a level of respectful disagreement, right? Of contentious but respectful discourse, of actually getting things done that for the most part will support the common good, even if it doesn't support my individual agenda. I believe that there are still a number of people out there. I believe the majority of leaders really want to be that. I believe that, or I wouldn't be doing this work. I also know that culturally, the speed with which we've moved, the changes in terms of priorities, all of those kind of things have led to these shifts in culture that have begun to reward behaviors that in hindsight, we didn't even realize we created. Hindsight is an amazing teacher. And history is an amazing teacher. As we went through the Industrial Revolution in this country and built so many things, and parents really said, I want my kids to do better than me, right? Good intent, bad impact. I want my kids to do better than me. I want my kids to have more than me. And that for them meant, I don't want my kids working in a factory. I don't want my kids having blue collar. I don't want my kids learning a trade. I want my kids going to college. Great. Have fantastic ambition. Want better for your kids. But the unintended consequence, the unintended consequence of that was to negate or minimize or somehow subject all of the other things to being less than or not as good or not as valuable. And I'm so glad my attorneys, right, are licensed attorneys, that they went to college and they went to law school and they can help me protect myself and they can be advocates for me. And I'm so glad that I can pick up the phone and call a plumber who went to trade school to become a licensed plumber or roofer, right? Or electrician or whatever, right? There is value in all work. There is value in every being. You do not have to be perfect to be precious. You do not have to be perfect to be priceless. There is a path for everyone. And I believe what is missing, and why I wanted to talk about it today, what is missing is some grace. What is missing is some kindness. What is missing is some acknowledgement that each one of us does not know everything. And it is in our best interest to listen to someone else sometimes. Even if we ultimately decide that we were right. Now we've at least increased the strength of our argument. I say that all the time. Go find dissenting opinions. Go listen to somebody else's stuff, because how do you know you're right if you've never heard anything else? And if nothing else, their argument gives you ammunition to strengthen yours. At least you know where they're coming from, right? So don't be so quick to dismiss something that is contrary to you. Now, be mindful of your spirit. You can't put ugly stuff in your spirit all the time. That's not the way to start your day, right? You got to start your day off right, because what you put in first thing is what sets your day. Got to be mindful. And don't be so chicken that you don't even want to hear something else. Go buy and read that banned book. Go listen to that speech that you don't, by somebody that you really disagree with. Now, again, I am not talking about people that are spewing hate, that are spewing disinformation, that are being harmful to people. That's not what I'm talking about. Because those people do need to be censored and or canceled. What I'm talking about is when there are things that are really bad behavior, where it's most important to ensure that people experience consequences of their decisions, because there's learning through consequences. When we are too quick to cancel, it's so easy for people to then get deeper seated and say, you just canceled me because you didn't agree. The My Pillow guy. I got canceled. You cancel my company, cancel my people, cancel. How about you if we had not? He wasn't canceled, by the way. He's suffering the consequences of his choice and his actions. If he'd been canceled, the business would be gone. He wasn't canceled. He was impacted by his decisions. And we need to understand that sometimes it's the experiencing the consequences that's the more valuable lesson. Because the minute you cancel something, it's easy for people to just stand strong and dig in their heels and say, see, just because you didn't agree, I got canceled. As opposed to living through the consequences of the decisions and the choices that they made. But all of that takes a little bit of grace. Actually, it takes a lot of grace.
What about that guy that did the Goya beans? Do you think he should have been canceled? People.
You know, so that's interesting. I heard that and all of the stuff that he was spewing and everything. And there were a lot of people who tried to cancel him and boycotted. And I don't consider boycotts to be cancellations. That's just my perspective. A cancellation would be, for me, would be the board took him out, right? Because you said this, you're done. The Domino's guy, when that was happening, he got taken out of Domino's. I still don't buy Domino's pizza, but he got taken out of Domino's. That's cancellation. This was, for me, this was consequences. Heard what he said. It was unacceptable to a great number of people. They stopped buying his stuff. He suffered the consequences of his choice. So we even talked about this on Fireside last night. They're like, Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby and all this. I don't spend my money at those places.
Chick-fil-A?
I do not eat Chick-fil-A. I do not agree with their stance on LGBTQIA. I have too many people in my life who are in that community, and their stance on that community does not sit well with me. And so I have a choice. Right now, my little money ain't gonna do nothing to Chick-fil-A. And they're a private company.
Even with Elon Musk and Twitter and freedom of speech. And you said we don't know how that's going to go, but it is scary with freedom of speech, because back in the day, freedom of speech, but now we see how freedom of speech has been mishandled.
Right.
And once it's out there, because even when you talk about the Goya beans,
yeah,
I like them, but once that happened, I would walk right past them.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of what you put out here,
Absolutely.
Because even if it's, pushing your agenda, and if your agenda is evil, there is still a majority of people
Absolutely.
who do not like that.
And that's what I say. It is, what is that old saying? If you're feeling froggy, jump. If that's your opinion, if you are willing to put it out there and you are willing to stand in that truth, if that is your truth, then you got to be willing to accept the consequences of that truth and not be all of us, because that's where the words get to be a problem. All of a sudden, when people are suffering consequences of their decisions, they're like, well, they just cancel me. No, what you said was unacceptable. And you are suffering the consequences of your unacceptable language or behavior. Cancellation is losing your job. And there have been a lot of people who have lost their jobs, lost their positions, and they should have, because what they said was so vile, so unacceptable. They needed to not be doing whatever it was. They needed to suffer severe consequences for what they did. But most people said, I don't know why y'all that are listening, StreamYard, I'm not sure what's going on. It keeps buffering. So hopefully you're not missing too much of this. What's happening is people are taking words and saying, because I don't like the fact that somebody held me for what I said and told me they didn't like it, all of a sudden I feel like I've been canceled, right? That's become the thing. It's not that you did wrong. It's that the culture canceled me. I got cancellation called. Stop it. Stop it. What you said was vile. And people said no. And that's what happened. If you are bold enough to say it, then you are bold enough to suffer the consequences, and don't blame everybody else. Own your own stuff, right?
Can you go back to saying what's wrong with Chick-fil-A again?
So Chick-fil-A has a stance on LGBTQIA that is contrary to mine. They were pretty vocal. They have not been as vocal about it lately, but very anti-LGBTQIA. Now they also don't have people work on Sundays, and they are very supportive of people. I mean, they do some good things. I'm not discounting that. And this stance for me is problematic. And therefore, since it's my money and I get to spend it where I want to spend it, I choose not to spend it there, because my money continues to support, I feel my money supports that I support their stance, and I don't.
So can we say that could be a part of cancel culture? Because when you think of Chick-fil-A, you think of the good customer service, you think of the smiling people. I was even short a dime and didn't know, and he said, we put the dime in there for you, man, another shop. So do you think that even with all the good they've done, because that one thing that a sector of people, because I'm sure they didn't think that they would probably get pushback, because you're thinking.
Because they're a private company, probably. So no, cancellation would be, well, it's a private company, so it's hard to cancel private companies. But cancellation for Chick-fil-A would be, people boycotting Chick-fil-A, shutting down their stores. That is true cancellation, like losing a job. The chairman does not have the chairman of the board anymore. That is cancellation. When people are canceled, they are no longer able to do what they've been doing. That's not Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is not suffering at all. I choose not to spend my money with them because I choose not to support that stance at all. So for me, that is the consequence that I choose to impose upon Chick-fil-A with my dollars. The consequence of their stance with me as a potential customer is that they lost me as a potential customer forever. Same with Hobby Lobby. I will never shop at Hobby Lobby again.
What's wrong with Hobby Lobby?
So Hobby Lobby, this was quite a while ago, but my memory is long. When there was a whole issue around healthcare, and they would not support birth control for women. That was not part of their health system, but they would support Viagra. Help me understand how that works, right? So I just have a very
That's a hard question.
I can't. But because for me, it then becomes to a gender thing, right? It then becomes to a gender issue for me. Why is it okay to say, oh yeah, we're going to promote this activity on this side, but we're going to not promote agency on this side? I have an issue with that. So again, and there's stuff in Hobby Lobby. I used to shop at Hobby Lobby. I love Hobby Lobby. I love their stuff, right? So I'm also suffering myself, right, from doing this, but I get to choose where I spend my money. And so there are many people who are like, no, that's why I shop with them. You do you, boo. Right?
So they don't want birth control, but yet they support Viagra.
Yeah. And they may have changed some of their healthcare policies now. I mean, I stopped following them completely. Once all that happened, I stopped. I was like, yeah,
I
I'm
heard
done.
it too for another racial reason.
They
at
have
one
issues
point.
there too.
Okay.
Yeah, they have issues there too.
So now we gotta make our own chicken sandwich.
Right? We got to raise our own chickens. We got to, but the point is this, right? And even though I'm talking about grace, so I know people are like, but I thought you said give people grace. Absolutely. My grace for them is, you know what? I understand your position. I am not going to try to change your position, but I do not have to support your position.
Now I like that, because say that again, because you're not boycotting them. You're saying you choose not to. You understand, and you're not going to make a scene about it. So
I'm
that
not
is
going to make a
right.
scene about it,
Okay.
right? Because giving them a lack of grace would be, I'm posting all the time on Twitter. I'm doing all this kind of craziness to really just be contrary, right? And I think there are times when that stuff is warranted, right? But for me, I understand they're a privately held company. That is a deeply held position of theirs for whatever reason. I also know personally the impact of that position on people who are very important to me. I know the impact of that decision because, as someone said last night, AC said last night, when you have hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, and you get on and you say something like, you know what, I just think this is an abomination, and I would never do anything, but somebody really needs to take care of those people. I would never do that, right? I would never do that, but somebody needs to, or somebody's going to take care of those people. What happens is you get that one nut job in that million that heard you say that's a diehard follower of yours, and now all of a sudden they're doing something, they're pulling a Dylan Roof, right? They're shooting up the club in Florida. So you have to be careful about how you address the things that are contrary for you and what you say. Because somebody's saying, you know what, I wouldn't wish any ill will on somebody. I don't want anything to happen, but somebody really should take care of that. You know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
You know exactly what you're saying. You know, that in my mind is also a level of inciting to riot, right? You're inciting violence. You know, you got a million people out there and somebody's crazy. At least one is nuts. And when you say that and they're following you and believing you, you are encouraging that kind of work. You're encouraging that kind of behavior. So grace is understanding your position, understanding that your position may be contrary to everybody else's, owning the consequences of the choice you make to have that position, and not being nasty and ugly to other people because they don't, which is our problem right now. The fringes are ugly because people don't agree with them. So,
Natasha
I need
Davis
reasonable.
Johnson said that that's a real suffer for her Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I loved it. They have some cool stuff in Hobby Lobby. Can't do it.
It's the Chick-fil-A for me.
Can't do it. I know. It's hard. And there are people who love it, swear by it, do it all the time. I cannot. I choose not to. And I love their waffle fries, but I choose not to, right?
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires. Yay! So, we got to do our shout outs. Shout outs.
Say where I can
Shout outs. Yeah, Buenos
Buenos
Aires.
Aires is tuned in. Hamburg is tuned in today. Lennox, do you know that? Lennox?
I don't know. I can't
Lennox, that's new.
Yes, that's new.
So you know where that is?
Awesome. I don't,
This
but
is
I
my
will.
opposite, I'm just kidding.
I will, right? But I will.
Okay, Monterey is tuned in.
Yeah.
Cole is back in today
Yep.
with double the number.
Yay.
We got Helsinki.
Yay.
Triple the numbers on today in Helsinki. We've got Finland today, Germany, France, Mexico, Malaysia, United Kingdom, Argentina. That's
Argentina,
Brazil. India is in today.
Yay,
Let's see,
India.
we've got Atlanta, New York, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Antonio, Kansas City, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston.
Love it. Love it. Thank y'all for joining. Hey, come join me on Fireside. Fireside on Thursday night. That is 7 p.m. Central Time, Thursday night. This week, we're going to be talking about some of this same stuff, right? But I love it because you can join in the conversation, jump on the stage, make your comments, ask your questions. Fireside, 7 p.m. It's iOS still right now. So go to firesidechat.com/Laurel Rutledge. You can get access. Go do it now because it takes a minute to get access. So go get access. You can also tune in on my YouTube channel. If you don't have iOS device, you can tune in and listen to the show on YouTube. And I broadcast live there. And I'm going to start broadcasting live on LinkedIn as well. So you'll be able to catch it. But definitely join me there. And the new podcast drops tomorrow, assuming I get it recorded today. So the new podcast episode drops tomorrow too. Thank you guys always for listening and tuning in. Yes, Facebook.
Cynthia J. Hickman, Dr. Hickman, Arlington Lane, the second.
Yay.
We've got Chastity, my friend Chastity is tuned in
Chastity.
on today. Pam Mays Jones is tuned
Hi,
in
Pam.
on today. And Latasha Davis Johnson.
Love it.
Tuned in on Facebook.
Thank y'all for tuning in.
Oh, Missouri City.
Missouri City. Hello, Missouri City.
wanna
Mo
be
City.
international.
Yes, Mo City. Thank y'all for tuning in. Happy Tuesday. Give yourself some grace. If you're sitting in dorsal, go outside, breathe some air, get some sun. Move back to that fight or flight until you can move into your zone of genius, right? Into that zone.
Before you go,
Yeah.
I have to say this because people that are just now tuned in, and you said something earlier for those that just logged in. You said this weekend you had a good time, you were shopping, you went and got your plants and things of that nature. And I knew exactly what you were saying because I went Saturday and I went to get some plants. And I was happy, I was working the yard. Sunday I woke up and I felt like I felt like crying.
Right.
I felt real depressed.
I don't know what was moving.
Like, what am I doing? What I gotta do?
Yeah.
And it just came over me all of a sudden, and the Lord just began to minister to me, and I went outside, sat on the patio, and he was saying, you're taking up too much of what's going on in the world, because in the world, you would think all of these problems are unfixable if you let them get over you like that. And you said something else, because when you watch the news a lot and when you listen to the news, you assume that the world is ugly.
All the time.
When I went shopping, there was this lady who was so kind to show me what plant to buy.
Yes.
She was giving me the background, and I knew a time I would like, leave me alone, I'm trying to
Right.
But I was glad to talk to her, right?
Yes.
So to the people that are tuned in now, I want people to know, because you're a businesswoman, you're out working, I'm out uplifting and encouraging all the time. We still go through things.
Absolutely.
It's not unnormal.
It's
As
not.
You would say, it's not unkind.
Nope.
To be clear.
Right.
But it's not unnormal to go through seasons of sadness, because there is a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and that's why, I committed when I started this show, when I did the podcast, I committed to just be real.
Yeah.
You are not going to just see my highlight reel when you follow me. You're just not. You're going to see the behind the scenes, and yesterday was nasty. Yesterday was ugly. I had a hard time pulling myself out yesterday. And even though I know I'm a woman of faith, I know who I am, I know whose I am, but we have those moments. And especially for those of you who are in a job or career that you are miserable in, or those of you who are building a business, you need to give yourself some grace, because there are going to be those days and times when it just sucks. And you're wondering, why did I do this? Have I lost my mind? I know for me, there are times when I'm like, let me just go back to corporate. At least that's the enemy I know. Let me just go back and do that. I can deal with those people. Let me just do it. I get a regular paycheck, right? I'm just like, let me just do that. And so, but then when I do that, I'm like, no, because I know what that feels like. But just give yourself some grace. We all have moments. We all have moments. And the idea is to be able to have a village that surrounds you that can help pull you out of those moments. Have whatever your thing is. For me, it's prayer and meditation. It is going back to the source. Find what your source is, right? Find that village, what grounds you. For me, faith, family, friends, right? And health. If one of those things is off, then I'm off. And some of those things were off yesterday. And so, as Jerry said, there's just so much heaviness going on right now.
And if you're an empath and you deal with the public, a lot of stuff is not your stuff.
It's not.
As you said, you have personal people in your circle that are going through situations.
Yes.
And people feel things for other people. So
yes.
You're right about to start the show off with, you have to give yourself grace too.
Yes, you
and
do.
If you're in one of those days you don't feel like talking, give yourself grace for that too.
Exactly. Because I did. I said yesterday, I'm like, okay, y'all, you're not getting this today, and I'm not doing the podcast till Tuesday. So it's the best I can do this time, and give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace.
Cynthia says yes, and self-awareness, self-acceptance, and love is key.
Yes.
Grace, love this message.
Yes, it is so key. Gotta love yourself before you can love anybody else.
All right.
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.